I am on a GLP-1 and currently I am on the 5th titration for the brand medication of tirzepatide, Zepbound. And I know I cannot be the only person who's ever moved up in dose and thought, okay, this is gonna be the dose. This is the one where the weight starts falling off. If that's been you, this is the video for you. Because one thing I've learned about titrating on Zepbound is that moving up does not guarantee a stronger version of what I was experiencing on the dose before. With every titration so far, sometimes my suppression changed, sometimes my side effects worsened, sometimes my side effects actually improved. Sometimes the scale changed, and sometimes absolutely nothing happened the way I expected it to. So today, I want to talk to you about the things that can change every time you move up in dose on your GLP-1, and more importantly, what the data says we should expect. Quick disclaimer, this is not medical advice. I am not a medical professional. I'm simply sharing my experience and what has changed for me on every titration of Zepbound so far. Let's start with the most obvious one, and that is that side effects can change. Side effects is one of the leading reasons why people are dropping off their GLP-1 treatment, so it's an important one to talk about. When you increase your dose, an existing side effect can actually become more noticeable, or a completely brand new one will just show up, or better yet, you'll actually feel perfectly fine. The Zepbound and Wegovy prescribing information actually gives us an important clue. In the clinical trials, the majority of nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea happened during dose escalation and decreased over time. That is one of the most important reasons why GLP-1s aren't titrated every single week. Instead, that dose escalation should only happen at least after being on the current dose for 4 weeks. This allows our body the time it needs to be able to adjust to the medication. What may seem like a rough week after a dose escalation is actually just a temporary adjustment period that should improve. But the opposite matters too. More medication does not guarantee more side effects. You could actually struggle on a dose and do surprisingly well on the next titration. And it goes without saying, if the symptoms are severe, persistent, and concerning, that's not something you should power through. That's the time for you to have a conversation with your healthcare provider. Number 2, satiety and appetite suppression can change. And this one fascinates me because I think a lot of us use the words interchangeably when they're actually describing different experiences. There's hunger, there's appetite, there's food noise, there's satiety, which is how satisfied you feel after meals, and there's satiation, which is how quickly you can reach the point where you want to stop eating during a meal. Those aren't necessarily the same things. You might titrate and suddenly notice, I'm getting full halfway through dinner, or I'm still hungry, but I'm not thinking about food between meals. Or even, I don't feel dramatically different after this titration, but somehow I'm eating smaller portions. GLP-1 based medications affect appetite regulation and food intake, but it's that slowed gastric emptying that has its greatest effect after the first dose and diminishes over time. So expecting every time we move up on our GLP-1 medication to give us that dramatic, I cannot look at any more food feeling is simply unrealistic. Hunger is not proof that our medication has stopped working. We are supposed to experience hunger. The goal isn't to never want food again, it's to be able to ask ourselves, is the medication helping me respond differently to hunger? Number 3 is that expectations can change. And I don't think we talk about this one quite enough. Think about it. You're getting ready to start the medication. You took your first dose and you're excited for anything to happen. So you have a little less food noise and you think, amazing. You lose 2 pounds and you think, this is glorious. You leave some food on your plate and you think, what is this witchcraft? But several titrations later, our expectations can change. Now we think, I'm on 10 milligrams, I should be losing weight faster. Or I just moved up to 12.5, why do I still feel hungry? Or, this really was somebody else's magic dose. Why isn't this the case for me? The medication changed and so did our expectations. And that's where comparison can become a little bit dangerous. The dose that gave somebody else incredible appetite suppression isn't guaranteed to be the dose where you suddenly lose 5 pounds, which brings me to the scale. Number 4, your weekly weigh-in may go up down, or go absolutely nowhere. This is probably one of the biggest misconceptions about moving up in dose, because a higher dose does not always guarantee a bigger loss on the scale at your next weigh-in. And before you say, but the clinical trials do show a dose-response relationship over a long term. In Zepbound 1, adults without diabetes taking tirzepatide had an average weight change at 72 weeks of approximately 15% on 5 milligrams, 19.5% on 10 milligrams, and 20.9% on 15 milligrams. So yes, the higher dose groups on average lost more weight over the course of the trial. But notice what the study does not tell us. It doesn't say every time somebody titrated, they started losing weight faster. Dose averages across large groups were over 72 weeks. Your individual scale is measuring everything happening to your body today: water, sodium, glycogen, food in your digestive system, bowel movements, hormonal changes, inflammation, and eventually changes in fat mass and lean muscle mass. So you could titrate up, have incredible appetite control, eat according to plan, and notice that your weight did not change, and you might have even experienced a little weight gain that week. That doesn't automatically mean the dose failed. A dose should not be judged by one weigh-in. I don't think titration should become a race to the maximum dose just because the scale had a bad week. This is where having those open conversations with our healthcare providers can really help guide our steps to our next titration. Number 5, the difference between more effective on average and better for me. This one deserves its own category because someone is going to hear those Zepbound numbers and say, well, if 15 milligrams produced the greatest average weight loss, why wouldn't everyone rush to get to 15 as quickly as possible? And that's because population averages and individual treatment are two completely different things. And the prescribing information specifically says maintenance dose selection should consider treatment response and tolerability. That's important. The objective isn't simply more drug. It's finding the dose where benefits and tolerability make sense for the individual. More isn't automatically better because more exists. Number 6, your costs can change. And I realize that if your medication is covered by insurance, you might not actually have a difference in out-of-pocket costs. But for a lot who are using the self-pay options or telehealth companies that make compounded GLP medications available, there may be a difference in price as you titrate or increase in your medication. So before titrating up, one question people may not think to ask is, what would this new dose cost me? Because access is part of the treatment too. The biggest lesson that I've learned about titrating is that every time I moved up in dose, I wanted to predict what was coming. This is going to be the dose that gives me the appetite suppression everybody raves about. This is going to be the dose that breaks my stall. Or this will be the dose that gets rid of my constipation. Or this one is going to be my magic dose. But your next dose isn't a promise. It's just another data point. Your side effects may change. Your appetite suppression might change. Your satiety may increase. Your expectations definitely change. The cost may change. Your scale, it might go down, it may stay the same, or it may temporarily go up. What clinical trials can tell us is what happens on average across thousands of people. They cannot predict what happens to Grace or to you next Tuesday morning. Maybe that's the healthiest way to approach titration. Instead of asking, what is this dose supposed to do? Ask, what is this dose actually doing for me? Titration isn't a race to the top. It's the process of finding the right treatment for your body with your healthcare provider. And that may change every time you move up. Double check you're subscribed to the channel, friends. Give this video a like so it'll help others who have started or are currently on their GLP-1 health and wellness journeys and are considering titration. Leave me a comment. Tell me how many titrations you have left to go. And until next time, let's keep losing the weight. Bye.